At 09:06 hours on October 25, 1944, Admiral William Frederick Halsey stands on the flag bridge of USS New Jersey. His flagship steams 300 miles north of Leyte Gulf, pursuing Japanese carriers off Cape Engano. Below decks, radio men receive increasingly desperate messages from 7th Fleet. Enemy battleships and cruisers 15 miles astern of this unit and firing on it. Then, situation critical. Fast battleships and support carriers urgently needed immediately at Leyte Gulf. Halsey does not turn south. His staff officer, Commander Hugh Barr Miller, brings the messages. Halsey reads them, hands them back. Task Force 34, the battleship group assigned to guard San Bernardino Strait, never formed. Those battleships steam north with Halsey. Pursuing the Japanese carrier force, San Bernardino Strait stands unguarded. The invasion beaches at Leyte lie exposed. Between Admiral Takeo Kurita's center force, 4 battleships including super battleship Yamato, 8 cruisers, 11 destroyers, and the landing forces, only Taffy 3 remains, 6 escort carriers, 3 destroyers, 4 destroyer escorts, 13 ships against 23. At 1,000 hours, a message arrives from Admiral Chester Nimitz, Commander-in-Chief Pacific Fleet. Where is Task Force 34? The world wonders. The last 3 words are padding, meaningless text added to confuse Japanese codebreakers. The decoding officer should strip them. He does not. Halsey receives the message complete. He reads the world wonders as deliberate insult, a stinging rebuke from his superior. His face reddens. He tears off his cap, throws it to the deck. He stamps on it. He storms across the bridge, cursing. Witnesses describe him weeping with rage. He has committed the greatest American naval blunder of the Pacific War. Task Force 34, designed to counter exactly this threat, steams 300 miles from where it is needed. Taffy 3 fights alone. USS Johnston, USS Hull, USS Samuel B. Roberts charge Japanese battleships with 5-inch guns. Destroyers attacking battleships. Desperation against overwhelming force. They die buying time. 1,161 American sailors dead or missing. 913 wounded. At 11:15 hours, Halsey finally orders Task Force 34 to turn south. Too late. Kurita withdraws before the battleships arrive. The invasion beaches survive not through Halsey's decisions, but despite them. Taffy 3's sacrifice and Kurita's confusion save the landing forces. This moment, October 25, 1944, defines William Halsey's paradox. Aggressive to the point of recklessness, beloved by subordinates, distrusted by superiors. The admiral who exemplified offensive spirit while committing errors that would destroy lesser careers. The man who embodied hit hard, hit fast, hit often while demonstrating what happens when aggression replaces judgment. Understanding Halsey requires understanding where he came from. William Frederick Halsey Jr. was born October 30th, 1882, in Elizabeth, New Jersey. His father, William Frederick Halsey Sr., served as United States Navy captain. The son grew up hearing naval stories, attending postings with his father, absorbing naval culture from childhood. This background, common among naval families, created officers who understood ships instinctively, who thought in terms of seamanship and command before political considerations. President William McKinley appointed Halsey to the United States Naval Academy in 1900. He was 18 years old. The Academy in 1900 emphasized discipline, seamanship, engineering. Naval officers were expected to command ships, understand machinery, navigate without electronic aids, lead men under stress. Halsey excelled at some areas, struggled in others. He played fullback on the football team. Height 5 feet 10 inches, weight 185 pounds. He was not large by football standards even then, but he played aggressively, absorbing punishment, delivering hits. Teammates described him as fearless, occasionally reckless. He won his letter, became president of the Athletic Association. These honors mattered more to him than academic achievement. He graduated 43rd of 62 midshipmen, February 2nd, 1902. His early assignments followed standard patterns for junior officers. He served aboard battleship USS Missouri, then USS Don Juan de Austria. He was commissioned ensign after completing 2 years at sea, the requirement at that time. In 1907, he joined USS Kansas for the Great White Fleet circumnavigation. President Theodore Roosevelt ordered 16 battleships painted white, dispatched them around the world to demonstrate American naval power. The cruise lasted 14 months, visiting 6 continents, covering 46,000 miles. Halsey was lieutenant junior grade aboard Kansas. He stood watches, supervised enlisted men, learned how ships operated in extended deployments. The experience shaped his understanding of logistics, maintenance, crew morale under prolonged stress. These lessons, absorbed at 25, would influence his command decisions 40 years later. During World War I, Halsey commanded destroyers. He led USS Shaw in 1918, then commanded the Atlantic Fleet's torpedo flotilla. Destroyers suited his temperament: small, fast, aggressive vessels requiring decisive action. No time for consultation or deliberation. See the enemy. Attack immediately. This doctrine, appropriate for destroyer combat, became Halsey's approach to all naval operations. It served him well commanding destroyers. It created problems commanding fleets. The interwar years brought routine assignments: naval attaché to Germany, Norway, Denmark, Sweden, various seagoing commands, Naval War College, Army War College. He was progressing through ranks competently but unremarkably. Nothing suggested he would become one of the war's most prominent admirals. He was simply another career officer approaching retirement. Then, at age 52, his career transformed completely. In 1934, Halsey enrolled in naval aviation training. Regulations required all carrier commanders to be qualified aviators. Halsey, seeking carrier command, needed pilot wings. At 52, he was among the oldest students ever attempting qualification. His eyesight barely met standards. His reflexes had slowed. He struggled with instruction that younger students mastered easily, but he completed the course. He received designation as Naval Aviator number 8005 in 1935. This qualified him for carrier command. He took command of USS Saratoga that year. The carrier, 33,000 tons displacement, carried 78 aircraft. Saratoga represented naval aviation's future. Halsey, transitioning from destroyers to carriers, embraced this future enthusiastically but never fully understood it. He remained fundamentally a surface warfare officer flying carriers. His instincts emphasized closing with the enemy, engaging aggressively, deciding through direct action. These instincts served destroyers well. Carriers required different thinking. Carriers fought at distance, through aircraft. The ship itself was vulnerable, precious, irreplaceable. Carrier admirals needed to balance aggression with preservation. Halsey never achieved this balance. He commanded Saratoga through 1937, then became commandant of Pensacola Naval Air Station. In 1938, promoted to Rear Admiral. He took command of Carrier Division 2. By 1940, as Vice Admiral, he commanded Aircraft Battle Force. The battle force included all Pacific Fleet carriers. Halsey, age 58, led America's primary striking force entering World War II. December 7, 1940. Halsey was at sea aboard USS Enterprise. The carrier, designated Task Force 8, was delivering Marine fighters to Wake Island. Enterprise was approximately 200 miles west of Pearl Harbor when Japanese aircraft attacked. Halsey's absence from Pearl that morning saved Enterprise from destruction, but it also denied him the fight he desperately wanted. He arrived Pearl Harbor December 8th. The devastation shocked him. Battleships sunk or capsized. Cruisers damaged. Aircraft destroyed. Over 2,400 Americans dead. The Pacific Fleet's battle line obliterated. Halsey reportedly said, upon viewing the wreckage, "Before we're through with them, the Japanese language will be spoken only in hell." This comment, widely reported and possibly apocryphal, established Halsey's public persona: aggressive, profane, racist toward Japanese, determined to destroy the enemy completely. The press loved him. Americans, desperate for aggressive leaders after Pearl Harbor's humiliation, embraced him. He became Bull Halsey, though he hated the nickname. His staff called him Bill. The public called him Bull. The nickname stuck because it fit the image: relentless, aggressive, unstoppable. Through early 1942, Halsey led the only American offensive operations. Task Force 8 raided Japanese-held islands: Gilbert Islands on February 1st, Wake Island on February 24th, Marcus Island on March 4th. These raids accomplished little militarily. The damage inflicted was minor, but they demonstrated American willingness to fight back. Morale value exceeded strategic significance. The most famous raid came April 18, 1942. Lieutenant Colonel James Doolittle led 16 B-25 bombers launched from USS Hornet against Tokyo. Halsey commanded the task force, Task Force 16, including Enterprise and Hornet. The operation was absurd by military standards. 16 medium bombers could not seriously damage Tokyo. The mission was propaganda, demonstrating American reach, boosting morale. But it required enormous risk. The carriers approached within 650 miles of Japan. If Japanese forces detected them, 2 of America's 4 remaining carriers faced destruction. Halsey accepted this risk. Task Force 16 departed April 2nd, proceeded toward Japan. Launched Doolittle's bombers April 18th when a Japanese picket boat spotted them. The B-25s bombed Tokyo, crashed in China, achieved negligible military effect but enormous psychological impact. Halsey returned to Pearl Harbor hailed as hero. The raid made him nationally famous. His aggressive spirit contrasted sharply with the defensive mentality dominating American strategy in early 1942. Americans needed heroes. Halsey provided that image. But in late May 1942, stress caught up with him. Halsey developed severe dermatitis, a painful skin condition covering his torso. He entered hospital in Hawaii. Doctors ordered complete rest. He missed the Battle of Midway, fought June 4th through 6th. The pivotal carrier battle where American forces sank 4 Japanese carriers and shifted Pacific War momentum decisively. Missing Midway devastated Halsey. He believed he should have commanded there. He believed his aggressive tactics would have achieved even greater victory. This belief, unfounded but sincerely held, shaped his subsequent actions. He became convinced he needed to prove himself through decisive offensive action. This need drove his later decisions, including those at Leyte Gulf. By October 1942, Halsey recovered. Admiral Nimitz appointed him Commander South Pacific Force and South Pacific Area. He replaced Vice Admiral Robert Gormley, whom Nimitz considered insufficiently aggressive. Halsey arrived at Noumea, New Caledonia, October 18th. The situation on Guadalcanal was desperate. Marines held Henderson Field but faced constant Japanese attacks. The Navy had fought multiple battles attempting to resupply the island. Losses were heavy. Morale was low. Halsey's first action was characteristic. He toured installations, spoke to troops, radiated confidence. His mere presence improved morale. Subordinates described feeling energized by his leadership style. He trusted his commanders, delegated authority, backed their decisions. These qualities made him beloved by those who served under him. The Naval Battle of Guadalcanal, November 12th through 15th, 1942, demonstrated Halsey's impact. American forces, outnumbered and outgunned, engaged Japanese battleships and cruisers in night actions around Guadalcanal. The fighting was brutal. Cruiser USS Juneau sank with heavy loss of life, including the 5 Sullivan brothers. Cruiser USS Atlanta was destroyed. Destroyers USS Cushing, USS Laffey, USS Barton, USS Munson sank. Rear Admiral Daniel Callahan died aboard USS San Francisco. But the Americans stopped the Japanese bombardment force. Battleships USS South Dakota and USS Washington sank Japanese battleship Kirishima. The Japanese withdrew. Guadalcanal was saved. Halsey's willingness to commit forces decisively, accepting heavy losses to achieve objectives, proved critical. Through 1943, Halsey's forces advanced up the Solomon Islands, New Georgia, Bougainville. Rabaul was isolated. Japanese air power was ground down. Halsey coordinated Navy, Marine, and Army forces effectively. His command style, emphasizing personal relationships and mutual trust, created cohesion in joint operations that other theaters struggled to achieve. But problems emerged. Halsey's aggressive instincts occasionally overrode sound judgment. On November 5th, 1943, he ordered carrier strikes against Rabaul despite heavy Japanese air defenses. Carrier USS Saratoga and light carrier USS Princeton launched raids. The attacks damaged some Japanese ships but cost American aircraft heavily. The losses exceeded gains. More cautious commanders might have avoided the operation entirely. June 1944. Halsey assumed command of 3rd Fleet. This was the same force that Admiral Raymond Spruance commanded as 5th Fleet. The arrangement, unique to Pacific War, alternated command. Spruance planned one operation, commanded it as 5th Fleet, then turned forces over to Halsey, who planned the next operation as 3rd Fleet. This system allowed continuous operations while giving commanders time to plan. It also highlighted the differences between Spruance and Halsey. Spruance was cautious, methodical, protective of carriers at the Battle of the Philippine Sea. June 19th through 20th, 1944. Spruance kept carriers close to the invasion fleet at Samar, accepting defensive battle rather than pursuing Japanese carriers aggressively. He destroyed Japanese naval aviation but allowed enemy carriers to escape. Critics argued more aggressive pursuit would have achieved greater victory. Halsey studied Philippine Sea closely. He concluded Spruance's caution was excessive. When Halsey's turn came, he would pursue aggressively. He would sink enemy carriers regardless of risk. This determination, this need to prove aggressive tactics superior, set conditions for the disaster at Leyte Gulf, October 24th, 1944. Third Fleet, supporting the Leyte invasion, engaged Japanese forces approaching from multiple directions. To the south, Vice Admiral Shoji Nishimura led battleships and cruisers through Surigao Strait. Seventh Fleet, under Vice Admiral Thomas Kincaid, positioned to meet this threat. To the center, Vice Admiral Takeo Kurita led the powerful center force, including super battleships Yamato and Musashi, through San Bernardino Strait. To the north, Vice Admiral Jisaburo Ozawa led carriers, mostly empty of aircraft after losses at Philippine Sea. Halsey's Third Fleet attacked Kurita in the Sibuyan Sea throughout October 24th. 5 carrier air groups struck repeatedly. Musashi absorbed approximately 20 torpedo hits and 17 bomb hits before sinking. Kurita turned westward, apparently retreating. Halsey's pilots reported him withdrawing. Halsey believed center force was beaten. To the north, Ozawa's carriers were reported. They carried few aircraft, but they were carriers. Halsey wanted those carriers. He wanted the decisive fleet engagement that had eluded him. He wanted to prove aggressive pursuit achieved greater results than Spruance's caution at Philippine Sea. Halsey decided to take Third Fleet's entire strength, all carriers, all battleships, north against Ozawa. He would destroy the Japanese carrier force completely. This decision, driven by aggressive instinct and desire to outdo Spruance, ignored fundamental principles of naval warfare. First principle: never divide forces without adequate reason. Halsey divided forces by taking everything north, leaving nothing to guard San Bernardino Strait. Second principle: guard the objective. The objective was the Leyte beachhead. Everything else was secondary. Halsey abandoned the objective to pursue a target of opportunity. Third principle: maintain communication with adjacent commanders. Halsey's orders to Kincaid were ambiguous. Kincaid believed Task Force 34 was guarding the strait. Halsey never formed Task Force 34. The two admirals operated under different assumptions about force dispositions. Through the night of October 24th-25th, Kurita reversed course again. He transited San Bernardino Strait unopposed. The strait, which should have been guarded by Task Force 34's 6 battleships, was empty. Kurita proceeded south along Samar's coast. At 0637 hours October 25th, his force encountered Taffy 3. Rear Admiral Clifton Sprague, commanding Taffy 3, faced impossible odds. His 6 escort carriers carried 28 aircraft each, designed for ground support and anti-submarine patrol. They were slow, lightly armored, vulnerable. His screening ships, 3 destroyers and 4 destroyer escorts, mounted 5-inch guns. Against them, 4 battleships, 8 cruisers, 11 destroyers. Yamato alone displaced 72,000 tons, mounted 9 18-inch guns. Sprague turned his carriers south, into the wind, launching all aircraft. His destroyers made smoke, screening the carriers. Then, in actions that would earn 3 medals of honor, the destroyers attacked. USS Johnston, commanded by Commander Ernest Evans, charged Yamato. Johnston's 5-inch guns could not penetrate battleship armor. Evans fired anyway, closed to torpedo range, launched 10 torpedoes. 1 struck cruiser Kumano, crippling her. Johnston absorbed multiple hits, lost power, fell behind. Evans continued fighting with hand-operated guns until Japanese shells destroyed the bridge. He went down with his ship. USS Hoel, commanded by Commander Leon Kintberger, attacked cruisers. She fired all torpedoes, engaged with guns, absorbed 40 hits before sinking. USS Samuel B. Roberts, a destroyer escort, attacked heavy cruiser Chikuma. Roberts hit Chikuma with torpedoes and gunfire, contributing to the cruiser's eventual sinking. Roberts absorbed hits that set her ablaze. She sank with heavy casualties. The destroyer and destroyer escort attacks threw Kurita's formation into confusion. Japanese ships maneuvered to avoid torpedoes. Aircraft from Taffy 3 and other units attacked continuously. Kurita lost tactical control. His ships pursued targets independently rather than concentrating on the primary objective, the beachhead. At 0911 hours, Kurita ordered withdrawal. He believed he faced major units of Third Fleet. The ferocity of the destroyer attacks, the continuous airstrikes, convinced him he was engaging fleet carriers and heavy cruisers. He did not realize he faced only escort carriers and destroyers until later. Taffy 3's fight lasted approximately 2.5 hours. American losses: 2 destroyers, 1 destroyer escort, 1 escort carrier sunk, 1,161 killed or missing. Japanese losses: 3 cruisers sunk, several ships damaged. But strategically, Taffy 3 won. The beachhead was saved. Kurita withdrew. Meanwhile, 300 miles north, Halsey destroyed Ozawa's carrier force. 4 carriers sunk. Zuikaku, Zuiho, Chitose, Chiyoda. Several smaller ships destroyed. The victory was complete. But it was also meaningless. The carriers carried few aircraft. They posed no offensive threat. They existed as decoys. Halsey took the bait completely. When he finally turned south, responding to desperate pleas from Kinkaid and Nimitz's famous message, his battleships arrived hours too late. Task Force 34 raced toward San Bernardino Strait, but Kurita had already withdrawn. The chance to intercept was lost. Post-battle analysis was immediate and harsh. Nimitz, Kinkaid, and 7th Fleet commanders criticized Halsey's decision. Taking all forces north, leaving the strait unguarded, violated basic principles. Communication failures compounded the error. Halsey's ambiguous messages left Kinkaid believing protection existed when none did. Halsey defended his actions strenuously. He argued destroying Japanese carriers justified the risk. He argued Taffy 3's resistance exceeded reasonable expectations. He argued Kurita should have pressed his attack and only retreated through incompetence or cowardice. None of these arguments addressed the fundamental question: why guard the objective with nothing while pursuing targets of secondary importance? The controversy persists today. Some historians defend Halsey, arguing his aggressive spirit was exactly what America needed, that his occasional errors were acceptable costs for his overall effectiveness. Others argue Lady Gulf demonstrated fundamental flaws in Halsey's judgment that should have resulted in relief. Nimitz chose to retain Halsey. The decision reflected practical considerations more than confidence. Halsey was beloved by the fleet. Relieving him would damage morale. The American public saw him as hero. Explaining his relief would be difficult. And there was no obvious replacement combining Halsey's experience with command of multiple carrier task forces. But Nimitz trusted Halsey less after Lady Gulf. Future operations showed this. When planning critical operations, Nimitz assigned them to Spruance, not Halsey. The invasion of Iwo Jima, Spruance. The invasion of Okinawa, initially Spruance, then Halsey. But when Spruance's 5th Fleet became Halsey's 3rd Fleet at Okinawa, Nimitz watched closely. December 18, 1944. Halsey encountered his next disaster. 3rd Fleet, operating east of the Philippines, steamed directly into a typhoon. Halsey received weather warnings but misjudged the storm's intensity and track. He maneuvered the fleet inadequately. 3 destroyers, USS Hull, USS Monaghan, USS Spence, capsized and sank. 790 men died. Multiple other ships suffered severe damage. 146 aircraft were destroyed or damaged beyond repair. A court of inquiry investigated. The court found Halsey committed errors of judgment in handling the fleet during the typhoon. He failed to properly evaluate weather information. He failed to maneuver the fleet to avoid the worst conditions. The court recommended he be reassigned. Nimitz overruled the recommendation. Halsey retained command but received a formal reprimand. June 5, 1948, Halsey encountered another typhoon. Again, he misjudged the storm's track and intensity. Again, ships suffered damage. 6 men died. 76 aircraft were lost or damaged. Another inquiry followed. This time, the court's criticism was more pointed. Halsey had failed to apply lessons from the December typhoon. His judgment was questionable. Admiral King, Chief of Naval Operations, considered relieving Halsey. The war was nearly over. Halsey's continued command was becoming liability. But again, practical considerations prevailed. Relieving Halsey would require public explanation. The timing was wrong. He retained command through war's end. August 15, 1945. Japan surrendered. Halsey was aboard flagship USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay. On September 2nd, Japanese officials signed surrender documents on Missouri's deck. Halsey stood present, witnessing Japan's formal capitulation. His war was complete. His navy had destroyed the Imperial Japanese Navy. The victory was total. But the cost of Halsey's leadership style was equally evident. Leyte Gulf exposed approximately 130,000 men on the beachhead to potential annihilation. Only Taffy 3's heroism prevented disaster. 2 typhoons cost over 800 lives and destroyed over 200 aircraft through misjudgment. These errors occurred because Halsey consistently valued aggression over prudence, offensive action over defensive preparation, opportunity over obligation. Post-war, Halsey retired with 5-star rank. Fleet Admiral William Frederick Halsey, Jr., one of 4 Navy officers achieving this rank. The others, William Leahy, Ernest King, Chester Nimitz. Halsey stood among them despite errors that would have ended other careers. This reflects both his genuine achievements and the Navy's need for public heroes. He wrote his memoirs with Joseph Bryan III, Admiral Halsey's Story, published 1947, presented his perspective on major operations. The book defended his Leyte Gulf decisions, blamed others for communication failures, maintained he made correct choices given available information. The book was popular, but historians found it self-serving and incomplete. Halsey remained controversial throughout retirement. Naval professionals debated his legacy constantly. Was he brilliant or reckless, aggressive or irresponsible? The right admiral for 1942 but wrong for 1944. These questions lacked simple answers because Halsey embodied contradictions. He was genuinely beloved by subordinates. His leadership style emphasized trust, delegation, personal relationships. Commanders under him felt empowered to make decisions without constant oversight. This created initiative and morale. Compare with King, whose harsh management style created fear, or with Turner, whose micromanagement stifled initiative. Halsey's style generated loyalty and effectiveness at tactical level. But at operational and strategic levels, his aggressive instincts created repeated problems. Leyte Gulf, 2 typhoons, unnecessary risks during Solomon's operations. Each incident revealed the same pattern. Halsey pursuing what he wanted rather than what the situation required. Aggression without judgment. Offense without consideration of defense. This pattern appears consistently across his combat commands. The question becomes whether his strengths outweighed his weaknesses. In early 1942, when America needed aggressive action to restore morale, Halsey provided exactly what was required. His raids and Doolittle mission accomplished little militarily, but enormous psychologically. America needed proof it could strike back. Halsey provided that proof. During Guadalcanal and Solomon's campaigns, his leadership style created cohesion in joint operations. Navy, Marine, Army forces worked effectively together under his command in ways that MacArthur's Southwest Pacific struggled to achieve. Halsey's personality and management approach made this possible. But by 1944, with America winning, the nature of required leadership changed. Operations became larger, more complex, demanding careful coordination between multiple forces. The war required Spruance's methodical planning more than Halsey's aggressive improvisation. Nimitz recognized this, assigning Spruance to critical operations. Yet Nimitz kept Halsey in major command through war's end. Why? Partly because relieving him was politically difficult. Partly because no obvious replacement existed with Halsey's experience commanding large carrier forces. Partly because American strategy could afford his errors. By 1944, American industrial and military superiority was overwhelming. Even Halsey's mistakes could not prevent eventual victory. This suggests disturbing conclusion. Halsey succeeded not through brilliant leadership, but through American advantages so great that even serious errors were survivable. Had Leyte Gulf occurred in 1942, when forces were balanced, the consequences might have been catastrophic. In October 1944, with American superiority established, Taffy 3's sacrifice compensated for Halsey's misjudgment. Compare Halsey to other Pacific War admirals. Spruance was methodical, cautious, protective of irreplaceable assets. His caution sometimes cost opportunities but never risked disasters. Nimitz was diplomatic, administrative, balancing competing priorities. King was harsh, demanding, but strategically brilliant. Turner was micromanaging but operationally competent. Halsey was aggressive, charismatic, personally brave, and repeatedly demonstrated questionable operational judgment. The Navy promoted aggressive admirals during World War II. The service valued offensive spirit, willingness to close with the enemy, decisiveness under pressure. These qualities were essential. Passive admirals, unwilling to risk ships, could not win victories. But the Navy also needed admirals who balanced aggression with prudence, who understood when to attack and when to protect. Halsey represented one extreme of this spectrum. His entire career philosophy fit in 3 words: hit hard, hit fast, hit often. This philosophy inspired those who served under him. It terrified those who served alongside him. It concerned those who commanded above him. August 16, 1959. Halsey died of heart attack at age 76 on Fisher's Island, New York. He was buried at Arlington National Cemetery near his father, Captain William Frederick Halsey, Sr. His wife, Frances Grandy Halsey, was buried with him after her death. His funeral drew hundreds of naval officers, enlisted personnel, politicians, civilians. The Navy he served buried him with full honors. His legacy remains contested. Ships bear his name. USS Halsey, DDG-97, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer commissioned 2005. Books continue analyzing his decisions, particularly at Lady Gulf. Historians debate whether he was great admiral, whose occasional errors were acceptable, or flawed commander, whose strengths masked serious weaknesses. The truth likely lies between extremes. Halsey was the right admiral at the right time in early 1942. His aggressive raids and personal courage inspired America when inspiration was desperately needed. His leadership during Guadalcanal and Solomon's campaigns achieved genuine strategic success. His ability to create cohesion in joint operations was exceptional, but he was increasingly wrong admiral as war progressed. Leyte Gulf exposed limitations that more careful leadership might have avoided. 2 typhoons revealed continued failure to properly evaluate risks. His determination to prove aggressive tactics superior to Spruance's caution drove decisions that nearly resulted in disaster. The question asked about every leader eventually must be answered. Did they serve their cause well? For Halsey, the answer is complicated. In 1942, absolutely yes. His contribution to restoring American morale and demonstrating offensive capability was invaluable. Through 1943, mostly yes. The Solomon's campaign succeeded under his leadership. From mid-1944 forward, increasingly problematic. The errors at Leyte Gulf and during typhoons suggest he should have been relieved despite political difficulties, but relief never came. Halsey commanded 3rd Fleet through Japanese surrender. He witnessed victory aboard Missouri. He retired with 5-star rank and public adulation. The Navy kept him in command not because his judgment was sound, but because American strength was overwhelming and because his public image mattered more than his operational mistakes. This is perhaps most honest assessment of Halsey's career. He was genuinely effective leader at certain times under certain conditions. He was liability at other times under other conditions. American naval leadership failed to differentiate between these situations, allowing Halsey to command long after his limitations became clear. That he achieved eventual success despite serious errors reflects American material superiority more than his military genius. The words hit hard, hit fast, hit often capture Halsey's philosophy perfectly. They also capture its limitations. Sometimes hard, fast, often is exactly right approach. Sometimes it leads to disaster. Great admirals know the difference. Halsey, throughout his career, struggled with this distinction. He hit hard consistently, but hitting hard is not always hitting smart. That was his strength. That was his weakness. That was William Bull Halsey.